Story recapped here. Today, I'm going to explain an adventure, comedy, and fantasy film called Barbarella. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take care. In the 41st century, an intergalactic peace among all the planets in the universe has reigned for centuries. Meanwhile, Barbarella, a 5-star astronavigatrix, receives a message from the president of Earth about a positronic ray invented by Dr. Durand Durand, an evil scientist from Earth who is now at large. The president informs Barbarella that Durand Durand was last seen in the uncharted regions of Tau Ceti. The invention could cause havoc and disharmony if its existence should be known by other planets. The president then sends a device that glows and sets an alarm if it detects Durand Durand's presence, followed by some other few weapons that Barbarella can use for self-preservation. It is up to the gullible Barbarella to save the entire universe now. Barbarella begins to commence acceleration in temporal space. Alfie, the autopilot system of Barbarella's spaceship, proactively gives Barbarella their estimated time of arrival in Tau Ceti gravitational field. Completing all the preparations, Barbarella then settles herself inside the sleeping tube. After 154 hours of peacefully traveling inside the temporal space continuum, Alfie wakes Barbarella up, instructing her to take the purple tonic drink to supplement her nourishment. As they now begin to enter Tau Ceti's gravitational field, they suddenly encounter a magnetic disturbance. She then calls to activate the emergency system. However, the magnetic disturbance is too powerful for Alfie to overcome. Seconds later, Alfie goes offline, leaving Barbarella to navigate the spaceship manually as she tries to cross a seemingly orange fluid-like environment. Then in a few moments, she crashes into the landscapes of Tau Ceti. Arriving at Tau Ceti, Alfie regains consciousness and tells Barbarella of its analysis of the atmosphere. The 5-star navigatrix immediately steps outside her ship and begins her reconnaissance. All alone in the middle of an ice land, she walks naively along the slippery ice floor, when all of a sudden 2 little girls approach her. She realizes that the 2 girls speak an alien language. As Barbarella adjusts her tongue box, a device that can translate any form of alien language, one of the girls prepares a hard crystal, covering it in snow, making it into a hard snowball. Then the girl wangs the snowball to Barbarella, ringing her head and knocking her down. The 2 girls hurriedly tie Barbarella onto their sled as an octopus-like creature pulls them on their way to the little girl's secret hideaway. Arriving at the location, other children and dark blue rabbits gather, taking refuge inside the ruins of Durand Durand's abandoned spaceship to which Barbarella recognizes. She pleasantly greets all the children, but rather than giving her a warm welcome, the children tie her on a metal post instead. Then the children start to get busy preparing their dolls as they place them in front of Barbarella. Afterward, one of the girls switches a valve on, and the dolls begin to move towards her as each of them reveals their sharp teeth. Barbarella shouts for help while the dolls unceasingly bite her. 3 strange men suddenly appear. In an instant, the strange men shoot a large net towards the violent kids, enough to capture all of them. Their leader, Mark Hand, immediately runs towards Barbarella, releasing her from the ropes, and carrying her in his arms. Barbarella introduces herself and asks if he has heard about a man named Durand Durand. However, the gentleman doesn't know about him. Nonetheless, he tells her that she might find the man he is looking for in Sogo. Being a gallant, Mark offers Barbarella to fix her spaceship. He then invites her to get on board his icecraft so they can go on ahead to where she had left her ship. Being grateful to Mark, Barbarella asks him how she can recompense his generosity. Taking full advantage of Barbarella's naiveness, Mark bluntly proposes that she can make love with him. Puzzled by Mark's proposal, Barbarella begins to talk about psychocardiogram and other scientific stuff that ultimately confuses Mark. She then explains that for centuries, people on Earth first examine someone's psychocardiogram if they are perfect for each other before they make love. After which, she gives Mark an exaltation transference pill, a pill that induces extreme happiness, as she further explains how they make love on Earth. She demonstrates the process of making love by extending her hand in front of Mark for 1 minute until full rapport is achieved. The old man cries in disbelief and insists on the old-fashioned way of making love. Convinced to agree with his demands, the icecraft spontaneously begins to spin around the icy land as they canoodle under the afternoon sun. After unleashing their innermost pleasure, Barbarella sings her heart out in content after her first experience as Mark announces their arrival. He immediately checks on her wrecked spaceship and finds out that the stabilizers are damaged. Barbarella, who still couldn't contain the enchanting feeling from earlier, steps outside the old man's icecraft and begins to move sensually towards him. Showing no disregard for her gestures, Mark informs her that he had already fixed her spaceship and she can now move along to Sogo to find the man she is looking for. Just as she enters her ship, Mark asks her to stop by once again after she completes her mission. Acting all demure and flirtatious, she bids him farewell. After a few moments, she then rides on her spaceship, but not so long after the liftoff, the stabilizers suddenly malfunction. Alfie then tells Barbarella that her ship has been sabotaged. Moments later, the spaceship crashes again on the icy land, but this time, it goes through the ice floor. The spacecraft now navigates in the subterranean levels of Tau Ceti. Soon after, she leads her ship to ascend to the surface and later discovers a new world within the planet. As she steps outside, walking in unfamiliar terrain, she accidentally catches her leg on a branch and stumbles onto the ground, making the debris almost fall upon her. She briefly becomes unconscious after she knocks herself down. Shortly, an unknown man approaches her and begins to touch her face and her body. Barbarella suddenly wakes up and is blown away when she sees a blind angel caressing her. The angel introduces himself as Pygar, the last of the ornithopes. She then asks about his eyes. Pygar explains that he accidentally fell on this planet during a magnetic storm before he was carried to Sogo, where he lost his eyes. Hearing the word Sogo, Barbarella interrupts his story and immediately asks about the place. Pygar then elucidates that Sogo is the city of night where the great tyrant reigns. Barbarella asks if he has ever heard about a man named Durand. However, the angel doesn't know him. Nonetheless, he tells her that Professor Ping, a wise old man who knows all the affairs of Sogo, could help her. Momentarily, Pygar confidently takes Barbarella to the labyrinth to meet Professor Ping. Ping remarkably anticipates Barbarella's question. He then points in the direction of Sogo as he explains that the city is dedicated to all sorts of evil in every form. Barbarella immediately asks the professor about Durand. The professor tells her that Durand is alive and well in Sogo. Barbarella presents her wrecked spaceship to the professor, but unluckily the old professor will need another week or two to make her spaceship running. Barbarella imposes that she cannot wait for a week. Then she asks Pygar to fly her to Sogo instead, however, he refuses because he has no longer the will to fly after losing his sight. Barbarella, known for her protrusive attitude, asks Pygar where he's staying. The angel brings her to his nest. Showing her astonishment towards his place, Barbarella plans on restoring Pygar's will by indulging the angel to make love with her. After another time of satisfaction, Barbarella notices that Pygar is no longer beside her. Then in a distance, she sees him flying along with the clouds. Immediately, Barbarella asks him to fly her to Sogo. Pygar, who already started to develop feelings towards her, agrees to take her there. With Barbarella as his eyes, they begin to fly away from the labyrinth. During the flight, Barbarella shoots all the black guards that hinder them from reaching their destination. Overcoming all obstacles, they finally arrive in Sogo. Entering the citadel through one of the vents, Pygar senses great danger ahead of them. As they get into the main hall, the people in Sogo stare at them maliciously. Then two hoodlums sneak from behind, knocking Pygar down to the ground. Just then, a mysterious lady stabs the two men from behind, leaving them dead. Barbarella thanks the mysterious lady for her generosity. Captivated by the astro-navigatrix's beauty, the mysterious lady asks Barbarella if she can indulge her. However, Barbarella is more concerned with Pygar as she quickly runs to find him, leaving the mysterious lady behind. She then hears Pygar screaming in pain and finds him standing in the hall, surrounded by people while they make fun of him as he is about to be slain. Barbarella stands in front of him, protecting the angel from the mob. All of a sudden, each of the mob's faces expresses bewilderment and confusion as Barbarella unknowingly leads themselves into the Mathmos, a liquid form of energy that is used as the main energy source of Sogo that feeds and charges itself with evil thoughts. The Mathmos begins to speak with them. It allows them to choose among 3 doors, each awaiting a certain kind of death, in which the liquid matter will consume their bodies towards the end. Finding no other alternative, Barbarella kisses Pygar one last time. As she's about to open the middle door, the concierge to the great tyrant suddenly arrives and stops them from entering the door. While heading out, Barbarella attentively listens to the concierge explaining the nature of the Mathmos as she becomes too late to notice that Pygar is already being abducted. The concierge then takes Barbarella to meet the great tyrant. As the two ladies face each other, Barbarella immediately recognizes that the tyrant was the mysterious lady from before that saved her. Appreciating Barbarella's ability to recall, the great tyrant explains that she tries to blend among her people sometimes, to become ordinary and evil in plain sight. She then reveals Pygar, wounded and hanging on his arm as execution for his severe crimes, such as escaping the labyrinth, destroying 12 of her black guards, and depriving her of the pleasure of indulging with an earthling. Seeing Pygar in an agonizing state, Barbarella quickly runs towards her angel lover as the great tyrant tries to intimidate and entice the fragile little earthling to play with her. Barbarella plays along while she slowly slips her hand under Pygar's garments, secretly procuring her gun that she slid in between Pygar's thighs. Barbarella immediately takes the tyrant hostage and demands full release of Pygar. However, the concierge has seen through Barbarella's trick as he reveals to everyone that her weapon is depleted of power. After the commotion, they take her to the birds, while in the meantime, the great tyrant tempts Pygar to engage with her intimately. Unfortunately, Pygar resists her invitation that ultimately causes the tyrant to throw him away into the Mathmos. On the other side of the citadel, Barbarella suffers from the assault of 100 birds while she is locked inside a birdcage. Minutes away from becoming birdseed, a sliding door from the floor suddenly opens, allowing herself to subsequently fall into the chute. After which, she finds herself inside a seemingly odd laboratory where she sees a strange man wearing a leather cape standing in front of her. The strange man introduces himself as Dildano, head of the revolutionary forces. As usual, she asks him how she can recompense his generosity. Dildano then starts to imply his steamy intentions. Becoming accustomed to other men, Barbarella begins to take her clothes off. Dildano immediately stops her obscene behavior and insists on using the exaltation transference pill like how they usually do on Earth. In sheer disappointment, Barbarella pleads if they can do it the old way. However, Dildano asserts that he's no savage just as he presents her with the pill. Without wasting another moment, Dildano excitedly takes the pill while Barbarella takes it forcibly. Then succeedingly, they extend their hands in front of each other, and in an instant, they begin to make love like how they do on Earth, the modern boring way. Shortly after, Barbarella presumably asks Dildano if he obtained the pill through a man named Durand Durand. Dildano admits and confirms the villain's identity, however, he explains that only the Great Tyrant knows about Durand Durand's whereabouts as he then carefully proposes a bargain. Dildano offers her the key to the Chamber of Dreams, where the tyrant is vulnerable while at sleep, but in return, Barbarella will allow them to use her spaceship and weaponry for their cause. Having everything said and done, Dildano hands over the invisible key to Barbarella as he leads her towards the chute that will take her back to the surface. Back on the Citadel, Barbarella asks one of the inhabitants how to get to the 12th corridor where the Chamber of Dreams lies. Then in a distance, she notices that the concierge is coming her way, so she quickly tries to blend in among other people. The concierge recognizes her and calls her to join him. Bringing her inside a strange room, he places Barbarella inside a huge machine that induces fatal intimate pleasure. The machine begins to gradually remove her clothes as the tune changes from light to heavy, while at the same time, increasing the intensity of pleasure. Before long, Barbarella outlasts the machine as it burns to its destruction. The concierge explodes in fury while looking at Barbarella. He then quickly walks behind her to look for another means in eliminating his exhausted guest, but as he moves along his way, he accidentally steps on the detection device that was sent to her earlier by the president, making its lights glow, indicating the presence of Durand Durand. To her surprise, Barbarella immediately confronts the concierge about his real identity, that he is the evil Dr. Durand Durand. Now, fully revealing himself, Dr. Durand begins to explain the nobility of pure evil. Knowing Barbarella's true intention to learn about the positronic ray, he shares how the weapon reduces all objects in its path, putting them irretrievably in the fourth dimension. Then subsequently, he tells her his plans to overthrow the Great Tyrant. However, he is waiting for the right person to kill the evil queen, for he knows that the one who kills the queen will immediately suffer a horrible death. After expressing his evil motives, Dr. Durand is now ready to eliminate Barbarella once and for all. In order to spare her life, Barbarella cleverly tells Durand how they can eliminate the Great Tyrant during her most vulnerable time, while asleep. Durand at first doesn't believe her, but after declaring that she has the key to the invisible wall of the Chamber of Dreams, the evil doctor immediately connives with her. As Dr. Durand leads her towards the chamber, Barbarella suddenly bumps herself into the invisible wall. He then commands Barbarella to unlock the wall using the key. However, Barbarella is unable to find the keyhole, which causes Durand to react impulsively as he tries to steal the invisible key from her. The invisible key slips out from Barbarella's hand as they fight over it, but lo and behold, as the key touches the ground, the invisible wall suddenly opens. Dr. Durand immediately shoves Barbarella in as he quickly moves towards the box, snatches the second invisible key, and hurriedly steps outside, locking Barbarella inside the chamber. Having both the invisible keys, Dr. Durand has sealed the Chamber of Dreams for all eternity. Meanwhile, trapped inside the Chamber of Dreams, Barbarella wanders through the infinite web of dreams as she tries to look for the Great Tyrant. Then finally, she is able to find the tyrant and immediately wakes her up. Barbarella then tells the tyrant about her concierge's conspiracy and how he is now about to take over her rule on Sogo. Already alarmed by what has happened, her resentment intensifies as she discovers that her invisible key has also been taken away by the evil doctor. The tyrant then turns her surveillance feed on. Looking at Durand, about to be crowned as the new ruler of Sogo, an attack from the creatures of the labyrinth and from the revolutionary forces suddenly takes place. It's a war against the Black Guards and the revolting forces. The revolting forces have the upper hand and destroys all the Black Guards and its armada. Knowing about their defeat, Dr. Durand decides to use his final resort, to unleash the positronic ray. The evil doctor sits in front of the superweapons control panel as he unleashes a powerful beam towards the labyrinth, reducing each and everyone in the revolting force into particles. While all hope is lost, leaving everyone in Sogo in despair, the Great Tyrant decides to use Sogo's ultimate weapon of destruction. As the Great Tyrant releases the Mathmos, it is inevitable that the planet will also be destroyed as it devours all that stands in its way. However, miraculously, the Mathmos creates a protective bubble around the two women as a defense mechanism to protect itself from the innocent nature of Barbarella. The Mathmos devours all of Sogo, leaving only the vast ocean as its remnants. Barbarella, the Great Tyrant, and Pygar are the only survivors of the devastation brought by the Mathmos and the evil doctor, Durand Durand. Yet again, as the Great Tyrant releases the Mathmos, it is inevitable that the planet will also be destroyed as it devours all that stands in its way. Subscribe to watch more videos like this. Turn on notifications. And leave a like, it really helps the channel out. Thank you for watching.